Okay, I'm going to kick off introducing myself as an architect. I'm actually trained as an architect, but and we've set up a company about 25 years ago. But for the past decade, we have kind of gone beyond. Could you get a little bit earlier? Yeah. Next page, yes. Can't see here. We've gone beyond actually building built environment into something that what we call is actually creating a sense of place. So what we do is actually generally maybe be described as actually placemaking, giving spaces a sense of place, but also we look into the idea of place identity. We are a little bit suspicious about branding in the sense that branding always comes with the idea of the art of persuasion, and occasionally with it comes the art of deception. So what we do is actually really look into how we can create or bring out an identity of a space, and then which leads to what I do, which is social architecture. So as architect, we just not only build built environment, physical infrastructure, but we build software infrastructure, the social infrastructure. If you can go to the next page. I'm going to give you an example of one of the projects that I'm working on right now. So it's really about creating public space. We're working on currently there's a development called Publica. It's over 17 acres, 800 residents, 1,000 office suite, 500 retail lots. It is a little village. So the developer has actually sold all of these assets. Their concern is that, man, am I building a monstrosity? How do we actually create a sense of place to this something that they feel, yeah, we do it for money, but I may kill my own company brand by just doing this. So we have come in to actually kind of like create a sense of place. We rebrand it as Publica, creating public spaces, a place for all, and created a sense, created really key component like, okay, let's start a DNA. So what we've done is actually create creative retail and incubation, create an art hub, arts and cultural hub, and actually community building. These are our three ingredient DNA for this particular development. Next, please. Within it, to create a destination, we create multiple attraction. And that's very key. You need a critical mass of attraction. And that's why I think few colleagues are talking about cluster. Clustering is very important, and actually the type of clustering. And that clustering can be layers of clustering of different degree. Next, please. So what we do is that to get a public space going, we create events. We curate events that give it a sense of like, basically it's creating activity. And if you create a lot of activity, you create life. And with life comes in commercial interest. And that's what we're doing. We have our KPI. Our KPI is actually to add value to the development. So people tend to question, why are you doing all this activity? How does that help with the value of the development? So it's a little bit dark here. So basically, these are events that we curate. They are more like festivals, and we do like, Publica does an averagely between 800 to 900 events a year. And they sometimes simultaneously coexist at different venues. Next, please. So out of the 800 plus events, these are all events that's not organized by us. Community are coming to us. They see how we use the space. They're coming to us and say like, yo, I like to try something out. They self-organize. So now we're literally doing a third of the amount of work that we used to do 4 years ago. Most of them are actually free content and actually people coming together to organize. So the other interesting thing is that when you talk to a lot of this community, whether the NGO or just a group of people, it's not money that they need. They need space. So next, please. And there is a real shortage of space in Kuala Lumpur. We are now embarking on another 20,000 or 2,000 square meters of space because there isn't enough space for these people. So inside, there are various types of, when you create clusters of public spaces, you need to make sure that there are outdoor spaces, indoor spaces, private spaces, semi-private spaces. The development is a private development because you have that many owners. But what it is actually it allows public access. So it's public access, private development. So that's really key. We find that there's always a failure of real public spaces which is owned and run by a local authority. So we believe that a lot can be done through private initiative. So spaces like this, we would do events where we promote like living city, design thinking, critical thinking. We introduce idea into a public space. It is like a retail center, but the Galleria is actually a gallery. It's actually a huge workshop. It's actually a place of interaction. So a lot of activity is actually going on. And we are actually quite blown away by the type of people coming in, from corporation to basically a group of housewives to kids. And usually our failure would be if someone comes to us and say, can I have a space? I'd like to do something. And we say, well, if we can't provide them a space, we don't then turn them down. What we do, we find them a space. It may not be a premium space. It could be something like a little niche, a little corner, but we give them space. We only say no because we ran out of space. So our idea is actually to create extremely inclusive, extremely diverse environment. Next, please. One of the other things that we do, which we really enjoy doing, is actually creative incubation. We will start with things like creating a bazaar. The bazaar are highly curated. In this case, it's an arts and craft. It has to be handmade, and you can't do any trading. We charge 50 ringgit per booth, which is actually about $15 per day. It's almost nothing. And for NGO, it's free. So over the years, we've actually incubate a lot of these people. And next, please. And then what we do is actually put them into a slightly bigger area. They have their own shop. It's like a pop-up store. You can rent 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. Why? Because we're getting them ready to enter a proper market, retail market, commercial market. So, so in this case, you see an example of like smaller retail. And once they get a bit confident, their family and friends will actually invest in them. Then we help them get into a permanent tenancy. It could be within our development or other place. We are not territorial about it. It's okay. So, and this is something that we tend to focus more and more on since we find that the public spaces are occupied by the public. Next, please. So, but within the development, because we have arts and cultural hub, this is an amount of like, we have about 20 art gallery and creative spaces. On top of that, we have a highest concentration of architects, studios, designers, new media, basically creative industry in KL. And it's a hub. So next, please. What's key in this whole thing is that before the development is actually open to the public, we set up an art center. The art center is actually set 1.5 years before the development opens. Why? Because we need to build community. It takes time. You need to build relationship. You need to build trust. People need to like the people that manage the space. So we, like for example, one of the spaces we have like a white box, which is white, and then we have a black box. This white space is highly flexible. We have a very strict, we're actually quite obsessive about our operation system, which means that space has to be very highly flexible, and we cannot set too many rules. For certain occasion, we say you can't smoke, but certain occasion, please smoke, you know. So it's that kind of thing. It's also, again, to create temporary autonomous space that which we feel very strongly. So it ranges from corporate event, arts event, dance, fashion, next please, to like a black box. It's another space, but the variety, the different type of events that it can host, from literary festival to fashion to cultural show to like gigs to, some gigs are really like heavy-duty gigs, you know. So, and the next thing, like for example, we could have like a gig like this, the next day is a fashion show. The change, the thing, so it's ever-changing space, and to create the maximum amount or maximum type of activity. In both spaces, you can do art, you can do theater, you can do things. It's that diversity. Okay, next. We also do a lot of public art, very integral. We commission 300 works, and that change all the time. Every few years, we actually change. So it's actually part of our big thing. Our festivity are geared on that. Next. Okay, so the other thing that we want to do is that why people say, like, why you do arts and cultural programming? It is important because, for example, for this development, within 4 years, the value has enhanced 250 to 300%, depending which lot you're talking about. That's much higher than vicinity. The development is isolated development. It's not plugging into the city. It is a destination. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is, probably forgot a few things, is, all right, probably lost my train of, sorry? Strategies. Oh, these are actually stuff that I picked up on what Penang Paradigm actually doing, you know. And I think it's really important. I want to also address the millennium, because the average Malaysian is about 27.7 years old, 2 years younger than the global average, 8 years younger than Singaporeans, 10 years younger than American, 20 years younger than Japanese. We have a very young population. 72% of the workforce within 5 years are the millennials. And how do you deal with this kind of stuff? They have different values, as our friend Jason talked about. The values are actually, they are motivated for the need for community, interaction, building relationship. Second is actually their need for justice, personal, social, political justice. Third is the sense of authenticity. That's why they like this kind of like messy stuff that Said Sun is building. But it is important. Authenticity is important. So when you do, whether you do for tourism or etc., you need to actually stress the word authenticity. And I think that is key in terms of ingredient in whatever you do. Okay, folks, that's about it. I just want to share you my interest in the social. Thank you.